And good evening, everyone. ESS, Empire State Sports, proudly presents the Wise Guys Sports Talk Show with your host tonight, Joey Riom, Dave Bartlett, myself, Pete Goslaw, and our special guest, SLC former football coach, Jerry Mahoney. Welcome to the show, Coach.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
I'm going to turn it over to the hometown kid and let him start it off. So it's all you, Joseph.
Okay. Coach, good to see you and glad that you were willing to come on and do this. So now we have a father-son tandem that's done this show. Obviously, Michael was on a few weeks ago, and I know we've been looking forward to talking to you because I always like to talk to some of our older coaches and get those stories. And last night, we're back-to-back Jerry's here. I think I told you when I saw you last week.
Right.
Jerry Welch on last night. He was great, and he just had a ball telling stories, and we're hoping that you'll do the same tonight. So why don't we just start out with your time at SLC, obviously, but before you got to SLC, working at SLC, your time in high school and where you went to college and all the stuff that led to you coming to St. Lawrence Central as a teacher.
Well, I graduated in 1960. I got to think you guys weren't even around, right?
Nope.
I wasn't.
Nope.
Not quite.
So 1960. So when I started high school in ninth grade, I lived in Helena here, and we lived on a farm, and most of the kids lived on farms, and I didn't even know there was football there. The only football I knew back when I was a kid, teenager, was Notre Dame football on the radio, and catch a little Canadian football or, maybe one NFL game on Sundays. But so before I got to St. Lawrence Central, when I got there in ninth grade, they were playing six-man football. 3 guys on the line and 3 guys in the backfield, quarterback and 2 running backs. And I didn't even know about it. I didn't play. So obviously Coach Fowler got after me that year to come out. So I started playing in my sophomore year they switched to a 11-man football. And other schools, Salmon River, and but we played in the league over toward Plattsburgh. There were about 3 Catholic schools in Plattsburgh, St. John, OLVA, and Mount Assumption, I believe, and St. Mary's in Augsburg, and it seems like Messina JVs might have been in that league, but so we weren't in the Northern Athletic Conference. In fact, I don't even think it existed at that time. So, but when I get out of high school, I went to Ithaca College for 1 year and played football. And then I ended up at Potsdam State my second year. And when I was there, I started playing for the Messina Warriors and played, I believe, 6 years. And I really, I grew up a lot. Messina they had a great tradition there, and a lot of those guys would come out of high school and continue playing, big, tough guys. And I learned a lot of football in the trenches over there. Guys names like Charlie Boots, maybe some of you guys from San remember Hastings Perkins?
Oh, yeah.
Well, he was playing, and he had played in college, and he was playing there, and got to be good friends with him. But just big, tough guys that loved the game, and I really took a liking to it. So when I graduated, I started teaching in Malone, and I just I really wanted to coach, and I wasn't even thinking of a varsity coach. I just wanted to help at the junior high or get involved. And I was there 2 years in Malone, and nothing worked out. So I kind of didn't think too much about it, and a name Brazier recognizes, Bob Marr. He came out, and he had been the coach at St. Lawrence Central, and he wanted to know if I'd be interested in coming over. And one of the guys that was on the school board at that time, and that was 1967. was Don Locke. And he was very instrumental in me coming over there and eventually become the head coach after 2 years. And so there's a guy that's seen a lot of history. He was a great fan and just a good supporter. And we still talk about it when we get together. But so when I was assistant for 2 years, and in 1969, I became the head coach. And when I got to St. Lawrence Central, their record was 0-41-1. They had played 42 games and they had one tie. So we were, we didn't have any visions of being great, and I was probably kind of naive about it. But I was lucky enough to hire 2 young coaches that were the best. Tom Geegan had just moved up here from Long Island, and he was a phys ed teacher, swim teacher at St. Lawrence Central, and he was just full of energy and he was a driver. And the other guy was Frank Mahoney, who had played basketball and baseball at Potsdam State back when he was in college. And he was also from Long Island, and he wasn't as much in, he wasn't really into the blocking and tackling, but he was about offense and throwing the football. And so the 3 of us kind of took it from there. And so our first year, 1969, we just went with the idea of let's set some parameters here, and things have been run pretty loose. And Tom Geegan, Joey remembers some, but he was a tough taskmaster, I should say. And just one little story. We're double sessions to start with, and it's early in the morning. It's probably we're out behind the school, and I see this one kid. He comes walking from North Lawrence or from that direction, and everybody else is busy we're doing drills, things like that. And I see him walking over, and Tom Geegan intercepts him, and so they had a conversation, and I think Coach Geegan was getting on him pretty good. So after practice, I said to the kid, Jimmy Wilbur, his name was, I said, "What was Mr. Geegan, or what? How come you were late?" Because that was one of the rules. You gotta be on time. You gotta be dressed. You gotta be ready to go. And he said, "Well, he was upset because I was late for practice." I said, "Well, why were you late?" He said, "Well, I walked to school." That's about 7 miles. It's on the other side of North Lawrence, so it's probably at least 6 or 7 miles that he had walked. August. So I guess our message of being there on time and not missing. And I often think today how many kids would do that. And so that was the message was getting through. And I think of our first game was at Salmon River under the lights. They had the first set of lights in the North Country. And we were in the locker room, and my reputation was kind of is I'm going to get them fired up and, ready to go. And so we're in the locker room there, and Paul Durant was the captain. And I was in pretty good shape back in those days, just played for the Warriors. And so, okay, boys, we get them fired up. And I said, "Paul, you give me your best shot. If you give me your best shot, and I'll let you know if we're going to win this game or not." Well, he hit me. And about 5 minutes later, I picked myself out of the floor. They're already on the field, ready to play the game. But that was, we just had some hard-nosed, tough kids, and that really wanted coaching and wanted to, to get into it. And that was we ended up 2-5 that year, but we had played some, pretty good football, and we were competitive. And the next little story that I'm going to tell you is we had a kid, and I refer to him as a generational athlete. And you guys from Salmon, you probably remember the name John Mulvena?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, he
Went to
was.
school with my dad.
You're okay, right? I can remember them playing basketball together, and
Yep.
I mean, he could do it all: football, baseball, basketball, and you have these kids that come along. You don't have them every year, but I mean, they could have played any place. Is the way I look at it. So, Kirk Dempsey who is a legend at St. Lawrence Central, at St. Lawrence University. He was a great player, and a quarterback, shortstop in baseball, played hockey. Basketball coaches couldn't stand it because he could play he'd have been a star in basketball. But I'm watching a JV game about halfway through the season. We're busy with our team, and JVs are kind of doing their thing. I look out, and there's no Kirk Dempsey. So, I mean, we were smart enough to realize he is the franchise. So his brother Kelly was playing on the team, and I said, Kelly, where's Kirk? Oh, he don't want to play anymore. He's working at Cody's store in Lawrenceville. What? I mean, my heart sunk, and so we. So I talked to Kelly, and he said, "Oh, why don't you come and see him?" And back in those days, Don Petty was our equipment guy. The New York Jets, Joe Namath had the white shoes on. So we came up with this idea, the coaches, we talked it over, and we got a plan together. And I called Don Petty. In those days, he would back the truck up before practice, and everyone go out and get a brand new pair of shoes. I mean, they don't do that anymore at schools. But I said, Don, can you get me a size 11 white shoes, low cuts? And he brought them over in a box, brand new, and you could smell the leather. And maybe it was February or sometime. I can still remember, like it was in the winter. I called the father up and said, I'm going to come over and talk to you and Kirk. So one morning after church on Sunday, I drove over, and I got the shoes with me, and we sat down. And, well, he was a great baseball player. He ended up going to Villanova on a full ride. And so we convinced him, we can't have you not playing football. And, what if he gets hurt? And this, I said, I promise you won't get hit. And that was a big promise. I said he's going to all he's going to do is play quarterback and be the punter. And he kept the shoes, so I felt good about that. But I wasn't. And then there, back in those days, there'd be 15, 20 kids 15 kids from that area would get together and Sunday play football, just play anything. I mean, it's just the way it was. Kids in Helena did that. I'm sure kids in Bombay did it, and around the North Country. But there was some peer pressure, and he was there for his sophomore year. And so we that was a big recruiting win for us there, because this kid was unbelievable. So we had so he was a sophomore with us in 1970, and our captains that year in 1970 were Dick Cooper and Gordy DeJong, two of the toughest kids we had ever had at our school playing football. We ended up so we won 2 games the first year we were together. Then we were 4-3-1. And the one game we had never beaten Messina. We lost 43-0. We were behind 36-0 at halftime, and that's one of the things that I always respected about Coach Nicholas and Messina. They were just awesome. I mean, they had back in those days, they had a 47-game win streak, a 57-game win streak. They were the team, and plus, there were other good teams in the league too. But if you played them, you're probably going to get beat 43-0. He would put 36 up on you the first half, and then he'd play the first string for one more touchdown. Then he'd take them out and let the rest of the guys play. But so, anyways, we were halfway through the year. We put Kirk in at quarterback, and we ended up 4-3-1. And so 71, we're excited because we've got Kirk Dempsey. We got kids that are Mike Murtaugh, Rod Truax, the guys who could catch the ball. And our first game was with Messina that year. And, we kind of made up our mind. We found out, back in those days, teams would just run the ball and, try to win that way. Well, we decided that we were going to be just the opposite. We came up found an offense. Some schools were using out west. It was called the run and shoot, no huddle. We spread teams out, and Kirk would sit back there in a shotgun formation and pick them apart. And so we just felt good about the kids we had, and we had some size, we had some skill, and so there's another little story. Our first game is against Messina, and we're fired up. And so on the Sunday before the game, the Dempsey's father, his brother was on the team, and but the father was a well driller, and he had a barn out there in Lawrenceville, and we had a meeting on a Sunday night up in the barn, up overhead, and we swore everybody to secrecy. We're going to run the run and shoot. We're going no huddle, and the other thing we're going to do is we're going to do our calisthenics at home, and then drive the bus to Messina and get off the bus at 20 after 1 and be ready to play. Nobody told anybody. And Coach Geegan was living in Messina. He had it timed down. It was like 18 minutes to get from Brazier to Messina. And our fans didn't know it. Usually you're there an hour ahead of the game and, practicing, but they're wondering, everyone's looking around, where the heck are we? And they ended up tying us in the last quarter. It was 20-20, but that was, going from 43-0 the year before to 20-20, and it was just a great start for our year. And that year we're 6-1-1, and we went no huddle offense. We had guys spread out all over, throwing the ball, and we just had a lot of fun, played great defense. So 72 was Dempsey's senior now, and we Rod Truax, Mike Murtaugh. Mike Murtaugh was a tight end, and he was a pitcher in baseball. He went to Villanova on a full scholarship too, and for baseball. But so that year we were 8-0, won the championship. We were, we're graduating 110 kids. Messina at the time was probably graduating 250 kids, and there were some big schools in the North Country. But so needless to say, people in Tri-Town area were pretty excited, and it was just a great great run there. Kirk Dempsey and he played 20 games. He started 20 games at St. Lawrence Central, and he was 17-1-2. So that's, for a school our size, and I mean, we had great kids to go with him, but he was the leader, and he was just a great kid. And he ended up going to Villanova. His dad passed away his freshman year, and he ended up coming back to St. Lawrence. He was All-American in football and baseball, and held passing records there for 20 or 30 years, I guess. But so that was a great run to get started. So, you know, I really, you know, we started out with great coaches and just great kids, and that was a good start. And so you want to throw a question in here, but I can give you some other.
I wrote down a ton of stuff there, Coach. I don't know about the Dave and Pete too, but what was my first thing is I've heard you say Villanova 3 or 4 times. What was the connection that was getting Villanova up in this neck of the woods? Was St. Lawrence Central the only one? Because I remember Bobby Hall way back.
That was a connection.
Okay.
Bobby played there, and he got out, I believe, 65. So he knew the coaches, and they came up and scouted, and so those 2 guys went down there.
Okay. So I didn't know Mike Merton went to Villanova. So
yeah, he went 1 year, came back, got married, and he retired from the Power Authority now. But a great guy, great athlete.
And then Dave and Russ, you guys can chip in on this one. I always knew the Salmon River had football, but tell me more about this lighted field. Why did Salmon River have a lighted field for football, and how did Salmon River? What happened that they lost their football program?
Well,
I'll tell you who ended up with the lights was Messina.
Messina had the lights.
Yeah, but the football program got shut down before Dave and I could even play it.
I would say about 76 or 7, they shut it down. Dr. Kelly was on the last team. I can, if you remember, if you know him.
Oh yeah, we know Ben.
Big Ben.
But they, they had played, through the 60s, 6-man football, and then they played 11-man football with, in that league we were in. Then Irv McLaren had the football, and then Buster Mitchell had it.
Yep.
And I mean, one thing that Buster was, it broke my heart because he and I were great friends, and they had an undefeated JV team.
Yep.
And he came back they were going to be on the varsity. Well, half of them are still back in those days, those guys would go and work in the summer, and it got dropped for whatever reason, but that was.
Yeah, the guys, mostly Native Americans.
You let them
would work in the summer down in like New York City, work on the steel, and they wouldn't come back until school started. So subsequently, they didn't have enough players with enough practices to start the season. Mm-hmm. And like you said, the last year of the program, the JV team was undefeated.
Yep, it was.
But they just couldn't field a varsity team with enough players.
Yeah. Buster, the year the year they dropped it, he came over and coached with me for a year. He and I were good friends. Yeah. Another kid I want to mention, so Dempsey graduated in 72 season was his last season. Then Steve Smith was a quarterback, and Steve was another great athlete who quarterback. We were in his 2 years were 5-3 and 6-2. He did a great job for us. He went to West Point and he played 4 years of football at West Point. He was quarterback 1 year, and then he played defensive back for 3 years. Very successful, and that Mark Eldridge was a running back with that team. That was a good group. And Joe, you might be interested. Steve was a golfer. They had some great golf teams, as you can remember. Steve ended up. I just saw it today in an article. 4th in the state Joey Sindelar, remember him, the pro?
Yeah, yeah.
He won it, and Steve was fourth in the state, but just a great athlete.
Joey Sindelar, I believe, was from Horseheads, New York.
Yeah.
He won the New York State Amateur in 1980 in Ticonderoga at the Ticonderoga Country Club, and then obviously he had a long PGA Tour career in the senior tour as well. So yeah, that's quite some names to be involved in for Steve. So and I've played golf with Steve. Good, great swing, great stick.
Yeah.
So let's continue. One of the things that you mentioned with Kirk's team, you talked about going run and shoot and shotgun, and not being a huge football guy, but I mean, I watched my share of football growing up as a kid. I don't remember the shotgun until Roger Staubach was doing it with the Cowboys.
Well,
and I don't remember the run and shoot in the NFL till like the Houston Oilers did it with Warren Moon. I remember that became a.
Exactly.
I mean, so you were pretty progressive and ahead of the
we
time.
We were very, very out in front of it, I'll tell you. And it was just in fact, a comment was made. We beat Messina in '72 there, and someone said, "If you guys played real football, you wouldn't have won." Well, that's if we line them up in 3 yards, a cloud of dust, but. When you got guys like Rod Truex running down wide open and Matt Nezon, we had speed and we had, Dempsey could throw it 60 yards, just a flick of the wrist. I mean, he was a just tremendous athlete. And plus he was a punter, and he would, we'd be in shotgun and it might be third down and we quick kick. That was Frank Mamano, my assistant coach. He always had some gimmicks like that. It was just a fun group to be with.
And at that time too, and Pete and Dave may not realize this, because obviously now we've progressed to our beautiful brand new turf field that we were able to use for football this past season. A lot of people don't remember, and I didn't. I wasn't around at that time. The football field used to be up at the top of the hill, which is now our varsity soccer field.
Yeah, that 72 was the last year we played there.
Okay.
And went down below 73. Yep.
What? Number one, it feels like it would have barely fit.
Well, it was. I can remember there weren't a lot of bleachers. People would be, they would be lined 5 to 6 deep around the fence there. And it was, that's where they played, but it was.
So what prompted the move down to the bottom of the hill?
Well, we kind of said, we've had a little success here. We had to pick up our facilities a little bit. And John McGrath was superintendent and a great supporter, and they got the towns to go in, to bring. They drew sand in, and Butch Surratt's father, he ran a bulldozer there for all summer, and they just made the nice little bowl down there, and people. That's how the hill started. So we've been down there since '73. Yeah.
And the other thing, going back to all the stuff that you were talking about, and because I get a couple of Salmon River guys here, I know they lost their football program, but then we had a long line of kids come over and play football with us from Salmon River. We had a good merger for a long time, and I'm sure you'd like to talk about that.
I believe the merger started in '84.
Right, I graduated in '82.
Okay, well, I think it was
graduated in '84.
Okay, no, I think you had an athletic director by name of Decker. You remember that name?
Yep.
Ed Decker.
Ed Decker. Yep.
And he was actually a football coach at Cortland University, Cortland State, and he got out of that and he came up here. He was AD for a few years, but he's the one that got it going. And we had when Michael was playing, my son Michael was playing, we had our whole, I mean, 5 interior linemen. I think 4 of them are from Salmon River, and a couple, Lenny Garrell, John White, 250, 60-pound guys that could move, and Craig Cree was a fullback for us, and so we would get 8 or 10 kids a year, and they made an effort to, the bus would bring them part way, our bus would pick them up, and I don't know, then sometimes they drove, and but it worked out for us, and it was, as we get into the 80s, our classes got smaller too, so we were glad to see them come. The early part of the 80s, I don't know if you remember Mark Demo, the Demos were all baseball guys. And Mark Demo was a quarterback. And our 82 team was very successful. And we were 6-2 that year. And but we had about 3 years where we couldn't get the school budget passed. And every year we're raising money, and I mean, we had some, back in those days, one time we had 4 parents put up $3,000 a piece, I believe it was, to get us started. And then we sold Civic Pride, which was to clean your windows with. It was like you might compare it to the sanitizer today, but we raised $40,000. I mean, it was unbelievable, and but that was a great team. But I shouldn't skip over 78. Remember the name Brian Soche? Well, and Mark Lalone and Steve Russell, they're all in our Hall of Fame. And Tommy O'Connor was the other one. They were the backfield, and we had a great line. But of all my years coaching, I would say that was the only year we ever said, we're just going to run the ball down your throat. I mean, we threw the ball a little bit, but these guys were big, strong, and mean. And Brian Soche went on and played 10 years in the NFL. So he was a fullback. He was about 215 pounds, 6'2", and he had no fear. And so that was a great. We were. Let me see. We lost 3 games that year. I think we were 6-3, but we lost to Saranac Lake, Tupper, and Messina. And there was no shame in it because they were great teams too. And it was, but just a nice run with those guys. Then our 85 team is Steve Yanda. So, he's another guy I would say like a generational athlete. I mean, football, hockey, and lacrosse. I mean, just, he had it all. And so he led us to a great, we were 6-2-1, and we lost to Messina again. I think we beat Messina, only beat them 3 times, Kirk's and Mark Demo and Michael's senior year. But we that year we should have. We ended up on the 1-yard line, and the clock ran out on us. Darren Wilson was the quarterback. Yeah.
I was there.
But you're just great kids and put everything into it. So it was yeah.
I'm sitting here, Coach, and listening to your stories, and I love listening to the stories. I do. It brings back a lot of memories. And a thing that I caught earlier is that when you got to St. Lawrence, you had tough times there. They were 0, I think you said 41 and 1.
41 and 1. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
so pretty much due to you and some of your coaches, you put St. Lawrence Central football back on the map and where it is today. Because back then it sounded like before you got there, it was an easy win to go into a Friday night football game for
Yeah,
St.
but
to go against St. Lawrence. So I'm sure it was a lot of hard work.
it was. But it was we and I had great coaches, assistant coaches all the way through. Tom Gagan and Frank Mamano, and as we went down the road, Dick Coolware came back. Dick Coolware, I mean, our first team, Dick Coolware was on it, and he graduated in '71. He played for the Warriors for a year, that first year. Then he went in the Air Force. He was in Vietnam, and he was a tail gunner in Vietnam. He tells stories about it. But when football season rolled around, that's how good he was. They would ship him back to Germany, and he'd play on a base team. And then when that was over, he'd go back to Vietnam. And they did that for 4 seasons. And when he got out, he went to St. Lawrence, and I mean, they still talk about him over there. I mean, when he played for us, he was 170 pounds, and I mean, I gotta say, he's the ultimate athlete. Just keeps his mouth shut. He just does it by example. Just fantastic. And so he, we had guys that we can say, some people think, well, you think you're pretty good here, but well, we got some guys that you got to stand up to, the Cootwares and the Dempseys and so we've had some we just had great athletes. And I used to say, don't screw up the good ones, help them get better, but you got to work hard with the guys. You need 11 you need 30 guys. I mean, our goal used to be, let's go get 12 guys from each class. And, 12 or 15, and we've had as high as 38 guys on the team, and we've had as low as 20. The year that Soche and those guys were playing, I think we had 20 or 21 kids, but they could all play. And so, but we just, the guys I had coaching, we talk football all winter, go to clinics, read books, and if we see something, we give it a try. If it didn't work, well, at least you tried.
That's right. So I'm gonna throw this out to you, and I'm gonna put you on the spot because I do this to every coach. I need to know what's the best team you ever coached at St. Lawrence Central.
Well, I would say 72. I mean, they were undefeated, but we had 4 teams that I throw in the category that, I mean, our 82 team, our 72, 78, 82, and then the 85 team. But 72 did it all, and the 72 team, we beat Messina the 3rd week. We're both 3-0, and we beat them the 4th week. Then a couple weeks later, we played Ogdensburg, and Ogdensburg, I mean, powerful, big, strong kids. Mike Valley, my good friend, was a coach, and Ogdensburg's always kind of, man, you just kind of envy them. The first time we played them in 1969, I'll never forget this. They came down. Brian Wade was the coach. They had 2 buses. They had 55 kids dressed, and they did a 2-platoon. Half of their team was on defense and half was on offense. I mean, it was like a college team. I mean, they laid one on us. But in 72, Ogdensburg, it was back and forth. But with a minute to go, they were ahead. And we held them, got the ball back, and Dempsey hit Nez on for, I don't know, about 45-yard pass and won it on that pass. But they took the ball, went down the field, and didn't score. But it was, so, you can look back at some games you win, and other games, some games you're lucky to win. Other games, you probably could have won, but you made too many mistakes. Our kids, and we always took pride in this, and I give a lot of credit to Tom Geegan and Dick Coolware, and just the assistants. But we would set a kid, if we hey, you give us some lip, or you talk back to the referee, or you do something. You get a stupid penalty, you're going to be sitting on the bench, and well, we had the attitude, we'll lose the game before we're going to, and kids understood that, and I always felt our kids were pretty well, pretty well played hard-nosed, tough football, and with good sportsmanship.
Good discipline.
That's tough to teach. That's tough to teach now in sports because
it's
so coddled.
I've always said the only way you can discipline is sit them on the bench, because every kid wants to play, and if they see that, they'll change their ways, or and maybe some you won't win, but that's the way it is.
So I'm going to put you on the spot one more time, Coach. And this is going to be a tough one for you. But I hear all these names you're throwing out of all these great players that you've had there, coached, and everything on that's moved on, the big schools and the pros and stuff like that. So do you have I shouldn't say a favorite player, but a player that stands above everybody that you've ever coached?
Well,
tough question. So
yeah, and I often think about this, and I kind of like it. There's like 5 kids that have been that. As far as being the greatness part of it, and Dempsey was just amazing athlete, and he's at the top. But I mean, he was a quarterback. I mean, Dick Cookware, as far as just hard-nosed football player, did everything he asked him to do. We had a kid by the name of Rodney Truax. There's still Truaxes around that was phenomenal. Steve Yanda. I mean, any kid in the mid-'80s, hockey, lacrosse, he was just fantastic. So, and Brian Soche, he played 10 years in the pros, so he was he was a character, but he oh God, he was tough, and that's though and I'm probably leaving out a few, but we just Steve Smith. I mean, he played 4 years at West Point. That's pretty. You're playing against Tennessee and Notre Dame, and quite a kid too. It just and I mean the kids. I mean, we had Mark Diemel went on to play Lemoyne, played third base at Lemoyne Division I. My son Michael played at St. Lawrence, played football and lacrosse, and so Derek Lalone, you've had on as a guest. He was tough. The other thing, our quarterbacks, my thought was, in a small school, you probably only got one kid of that caliber, quarterback. So they were not going to play defense. And Derek Lalone was the only one that played defense. He played as a junior, starting linebacker. Then Michael graduated, and Derek was quarterback and linebacker. But in all my years, he was the only quarterback that ever had that played defense. The rest of them, you come right over and sit with me, and we'll get ready and get the plays ready for the next, the next series. And but if I'm playing out there and I see their quarterback, somebody's going to take a run at them, and next thing you know, they're going to have a sprained ankle or something like that. So we try to play intelligent and coach intelligent, and it worked some of the times.
So I got one more question, and I know Joey's got one, and if he doesn't, he'll probably ask you about your son, of course. But my last question is all these years of coaching from start to finish, what was the biggest change that you've actually seen in football compared to years ago till now?
Well, here's something that kind of sticks in my craw every time I read the sports page in the fall. Back in those days, Governor, Frank LaFalls, Frank Tyson, Tupper Lake, some of these guys have been around, Augsburg, great coaches, Potsdam, Mike Lacani was there for many, many years. But, you know, the scores were always, you know, maybe 35-0 or something. Now you look and I know how hard it is to coach at St. Lawrence Central or at Salmon or at Canton, you know, these smaller schools. But I mean, now you look in the, you know, 72-0 or 72-8. I mean, you mean you don't have other guys on the bench you can get out there when it's 40, you know, you're ahead 40-0 in the fourth quarter. And that just, it's kind of like the sportsmanship about it. But, you know, I think back as the coaches when I started in the 70s and 80s, they were competitive. Johnny Raymond, Saranac Lake. I mean, he could lay one on you. He had some great teams, and he just would never do it. You know, get his 30 points. And one time I think it was 1981. They're ahead of us 30-0, and we started clicking in the second half, and you know we made it like 30-20. Well, our kids thought they were pretty good. You know, you know they forgot about the first half, but it helps you when you go out Monday. Hey, we made some progress here, and that's one of the things that bothers me now, that it just seems like everyone's kind of out for themselves. But you know, to keep football going, it's hard work. You know, and I just wish that was a little different. You know, some of the bigger schools, they just like that. They lay it on you, and I don't know. That's one thing that's different.
Well, Coach, you know, let's. I guess I had plenty of things I still wanted to ask you, and we only got about 10 minutes left. But did you coach anything else? Any other sports or any levels along the way?
I coached JV baseball for 2 or 3 years, and I enjoyed doing that. That was in the 70s, but I never did anything after that. You know, it was, you know.
And also, we'd be remiss too if we didn't bring up the, you know, obviously the big impact at SLC, but also the Tri-Town community. I know that you know, you're a big part of our community center, and the hockey rink and the whole area up there, and also years of being a town justice for the town of Brazier. So if you want to talk a little bit about that time.
Well, my father was the town supervisor, and I was always kind of interested in the local political scene and stuff. And 1974, back then, teachers weren't making a lot of money. My wife was teaching. We were kind of scratching out a living here, and the local guys, Justice died, and Jim Dawson said to me, "Why don't you run for justice?" I said, "My wife would kill me." And so actually, my wife took the kids, went to Buffalo to visit her parents, and the time she got home, I was nominated and I was running. But the thing that convinced me was the guy said, "This is what you'll make." My mortgage payment was $201, and my salary for justice was $199. So I've been doing it since 1974. So it's 46 years. And it's paid for the house payment, and but I've enjoyed doing it, and just you know, you get to see people in a different light, and you know, I like to think that I can, you know, maybe have a little influence on you know, people. We all make mistakes, and try to, you know, some people have bad luck, or you know. So it's I've enjoyed doing that, especially since I retired. It's, you know, it gives me a little something to do. And then I was on the town board at the time, and they appointed me to the recreation committee, and so I've been on there since '74 too. And you know, for a small town, we take a lot of pride in what we're doing up there, and got a pretty nice facility there.
Yeah, we agree. And my next thing too is I'm trying to spit this stuff out so we can get it in before we're done. But you got to talk a little bit about coaching. You did coach your son, and one of the things we've talked about in a few shows was fathers coaching their sons, and you were coaching Michael near the end of your coaching career, where a lot of kids nowadays are playing for their dad at the beginning of their coaching career, or they're playing because their dad wants to coach their son.
Yeah.
It was different for you. You had already built a program and been coaching for 15, 16 years before Michael came along. But talk about those last few years with Michael, and then obviously everything you've done since then, the way you've involved yourself in his life and in his kids' lives. I see you at everything that has Canton sports with a Mahoney in it. You're going to be at it. I know that.
I mean, going back to 1971 when we tied Messina tied us down there, and we showed up at game time. Michael was in the crib or the carriage, so that's what he was born in that year. And so as soon as he was 8 or 9, he was traveling to the games, practice, scouting, and he used to be the ball boy. I'll tell you a quick story. Eddie Getz, who just got nominated to the Hall of Fame, the officials Hall of Fame. He was on the game, and it was kind of raining, and Michael would dry the ball off and take it in. And I was never a guy to really get on the referees. I might give them a blast, and then I just turn around and walk away, and that worked out. And but we're playing. It was a pretty tense game, and Michael runs the ball in, and he hands it to Getz. And I guess I had just blasted Getz about a call. I said something to him, and so Michael goes in and he says, he said something to the referee about the call. Here's the ball boy telling the referee he screwed up. So Getz struts over to the gym. He says, "I don't mind taking crap from you, coach, but I'm not going to take it from the ball boy." So it was. So he's got the intensity, and so it was fun. I'm sure. I don't know if it was always fun for him, but we, when my thought, it's great to win, but it's just to be able to have enough kids to compete. And I always hoped when my kids came up through, they would have enough teammates to make it so we can go out there and compete. We're maybe not going to be 8-0, but if we can be battling in the fourth quarter and St. Lawrence Central against Ogdensburg, Governor, Messina, whatever. And so he played with some good kids, Jason Felix, who ended up playing at St. Lawrence, and kids like just good kids, and we were very competitive. Michael was we're in Carthage. He throws an interception, and he goes out and he's going to tackle the guy, and he got the wind knocked out of him. Next thing you know, he's on the sideline, right? So that was his junior year. And, okay, we got the other quarterback in. And, geez, I look out there about 2 plays later, he's back in there. I told him to go and sit on the bench. He's back in the game, So he was a competitor. So that he was fiery. And that's what you like, that it's important to them when they're doing it, And his kids are, he got 3 boys that are very involved in all the sports, and so we're it's fun to watch them and try to give them a few hints once in a while, but they do pretty well. They got good coaching from their parents.
Well, Coach, as we wrap this up, just a few things. I had told Michael when we did Michael's show that there's only 2 people that I call coach that I didn't play for, and you're one of them, and Jerry Welch is the other. And to have you guys on back-to-back nights, it's been an absolute pleasure for us. And I can't thank you enough, for the support that you give not only myself but St. Lawrence Central, that you continue to give. Again, this show is awesome for all of us. For me, when it comes to the people that come on, so many of them have a connection to myself, and I take great pride in that. And I've mentioned it a couple of times. I didn't know that you were at my Class C championship game. Steve
Mhm.
Skips told me that you were there,
Yeah.
and that means the world to me when I hear
Yeah.
those things. So again, it was awesome tonight to be able to hear these stories, and the Salmon River connections as well for Dave and Pete. I think were pretty cool too. So
Absolutely.
we can't
You know,
thank
you mentioned Jerry Welch. He refereed that 72 game. I mean, and when they were so professional, the referees, and I mean, what a guy, Jerry Welch, and he's been an idol of mine for years.
Well, and there's
Ours
another,
too.
Yeah.
there's another Jerry so Jerry Howerhand also ref football back in those days too.
Jerry did, and we love to see Jerry. He always I mean, he knew how to handle the kids, and he'd be a great guest for you.
Yeah, we know. He knows.
In fact, he started coaching in Brazier back in before, like in the 62 maybe, something like that. And I just saw an article on some of the stuff I had. He was coaching JV football, and then he went on to Messina and then Canton. So he loves the North Country too. Yeah.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you coming on tonight. It was an honor to talk to you, learn a lot about you. I've heard about you, but never really sat down to learn about you. And tonight I felt I did that, and we really appreciate you coming on the show for us.
Well, it was good for me. At my age, I'm glad I can remember some of this stuff. But
you did quite well.
I enjoyed you know, I went through it different, you know, there's a lot of stuff I've kept, and just some great memories. And I mean, to me, coaching kids is you know, I love teaching, and but you know, the coaching, you put it all together. It was a great career, and you know, we had some success, and I'm happy the way it turned out.
Well, thank you very much for coming on, Coach. Really appreciate it.
Okay.
We're gonna sign off here.
Okay, thanks a lot.
For our host, Joey Riom, Dave Bartlett, myself, Pete Goslaw, and our special guest, Coach. And we're going to sign off here on ESS, Empire State Sports, and the Wise Guy Sports Talk Show. Have a good night, everybody, and stay safe. Good night.